I think the space industry and like the tech is definitely important because you wouldn't have all of this like fancy things we have now with your phones and laptops, and also like nice images from the Hubble Space Telescope. I don't mind starting something new because I feel like when you're working in the space industry, you have to always be like some type of entrepreneur. I like the thought about like putting things up really high or like launching things. I think that's really cool. Yeah, so my name is Lacson. I just graduated mechanical engineering in June 2020. And then now I work for this company called MDA Space. And they are they're a space company that works on the Canadarm3 now, and also stuff for the Lunar Gateway that's upcoming with the Artemis missions. And then on the side, we also work on maintaining things on the International Space Station. So my job is to work with the Canadarm2. I was trying to find ways to be involved in terms of like a space industry work, and luckily there was a student group that was really well founded already at the University of Alberta, and they're called AlbertaSat, so I had mentioned it, and they work on like a 3-unit CubeSat, and they were about to launch it when I just joined. So when I say launch, I mean like they put their fully designed and like working cube satellite onto one of the rockets down at the Kennedy Space Center. I don't exactly know which one, but I'm assuming it's like a UCLA rocket. And then they were bringing it up to the International Space Station, and then that's when it would get dispensed out through NanoRacks. NanoRacks is like a brand or company that releases and launches things into space for private companies, and including like NASA and the CSA, ESA, JAXA as well. But so I came at the time when they were launching their their Q satellite out into space, and it was like super successful. And there's like a lot of momentum going on in terms of like, oh, we're doing so great as a group. And then one of the advisors, I like became close to him that summer because I was working a lot with AlbertaSat at that time, and he's like, oh, we need another space student group, and I think you should do rocketry. And I was like, okay. I mean, I don't mind starting something new because I feel like when you're working in the space industry, you have to always be like some type of entrepreneur. And it was great. Like I like the thought about like, putting things up really high or like, launching things. I think that's really cool. And I also got to see my own rocket launch when I was in Florida right after I did some US astronaut training in 2016, and I think that's also what sparked it. And I told him about it, and he's like, oh, you know what, we should both start this group. And I was like, you know what, let's do it. And so it was in 2018 of the summer that I tried to like gather like people who are like-minded, and then people who wanted to work on rocketry, even though I didn't really know that much about it. I really I had zero like information or research about rocketry, and luckily I found like this guy, his name's Lachlan, and he was like my project manager for the group. So he would be the person who I'd go to and like learn things about rocketry. And I honestly wasn't solely too focused with the projects, which I wish I had been, but it's hard because there was no one, or like I had to be the one behind the logistics of running the group and like trying to gather people and like get all these paperwork and get, like form an actual group. So that took like a really big chunk of my time, and I unfortunately wasn't I wasn't too much involved in the design. And I know I was still sitting in, like I was like learning stuff, but like I never got to input. But that's okay. I think my goal was still to like create a group, and it happened. And then they're still working on designing a rocket to go launch in one of our competitions down in New Mexico. It's an international competition, so it's open to anyone. But it's called the Intercollegiate Rocketry Engineering Competition in New Mexico. And that was originally what we were designing for, and still are. we were trying to go during COVID, or like we were supposed to go June 2020, but of course it got canceled. So that was pretty sad, or I was pretty heartbroken because I really wanted to go and see all the hard work from my team. But it's okay, it will continue with like the new generation who are leading it, and we're still always like keeping in touch. But yeah, it's great because now there's two space groups on campus, which is nice. In terms of like, okay, this is maybe a little too futuristic, but we definitely need a plan B when things go south on Earth. I hate to say it, but like there should be some kind of plan B if we want humans to like exist. And I think, you know, like the fact that also when you live in space and when we figure out how to live in space, it also helps us to learn how to live on Earth, to be like more conservative, to be more or to learn how to recycle more, because obviously on the ISS, or sorry, the International Space Station, you have to learn how to live like, you know, with the limited supply and with like recycling water and, you know, limited trash as well, because you don't want to disperse that much trash into orbit, and learning how to like reuse things. And I think that's definitely like a big thing that we can also learn from on Earth living here, is like learning those like, you know, good habits that we would have if we were living in space. And then of course having a plan B, going to Mars is definitely a thing. Even to the moon, I think that's still plan B to me. But there are also a lot of things that the ISS does, or that the space industry does for, you know, research, of course, is learning how things work in microgravity. And I'm sure like, you know, we would also not have, you know, phones if we didn't, you know, have satellites in space. So I think the space industry and like the tech is definitely important, because we wouldn't have all of this like fancy things we have now with their phones and laptops, and also like, you know, nice images from the Hubble Space Telescope. So yes, very, very important. I feel like I definitely don't look the part, which is okay. I mean, you know, it's very seen as like, if you want to be an astronaut, you're usually typically white. And I was gonna say it up front, but yeah, it's something like I do like to carry in, like, you know, on my shoulders, or like I'm proud of it, and I'm still proud I'm like Filipino, even though I'm Canadian as well. And I think when I go visit schools, actually a lot of like high school students are half like, or at least Filipino. And I do like talks, like when I go to like high schools and elementary schools, just to like teach them about like space stuff, or like teach them like, oh, you can be, you know, an astronaut too if you want. But yeah, when I go to do presentations with them, they're actually usually like, or at least half of the class is Filipino, and I love to see it. Like, it's great because I don't see that many Filipinos in my class, but definitely seeing them like see me as like, you know, someone who's working towards like a super ambitious goal, I'm sure hopefully inspires and drives them to, you know, do other things other than, you know, I don't know. It's hard because when you immigrate to Canada, you sometimes could get stuck in, you know, like smaller jobs, which is like, you know, it's a reality of it. My parents were also there, like they had small jobs like working, and it took us a while for them to even like get like a really good like salary job, and more so like an official job, I should say. And thankfully like they gave me the opportunity to go to school, and now I'm like doing these like big things, and I just want to like, you know, showcase that like you can do these big things when you work hard, and it doesn't matter like what you look like, especially me. I don't look like someone who would want to be an astronaut, but it's there. And yeah, I love that I can show people that you can be whatever you want, whatever you put your heart up to, and you have to be resilient.